Thanks for coming to the podcast, Jacqui. It is so great to have you here.
My absolute pleasure.
So Will and I have loved Blush since the first issue came out. And
Thanks.
I love one of the things on the website that talks about you, where it says, I may or may not have started this publication in order to fangirl my favorite authors without getting slapped with a restraining order.
Pretty much.
That sounds so awesome. It's like a mission statement.
But it's so true. I used to finish reading a book and then I loved it so much that I wanted to be best friends with the author. I wanted to know everything about them. I just, wanted to delve into their heads, I guess. And that's kind of what Blush lets me do. Without getting hit with a restraining order.
We feel the same way about the podcast. It's so great to just dive in with these folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us a little bit for our listeners who may not have discovered Blush yet. What is the magazine kind of all about, besides, obviously, of course, romance books?
So essentially it's an online magazine for romance readers. So I just wanted something that was specific for people who read romance. And there's already so many amazing blogs and podcasts that I just thought a magazine would be a fun way of getting that information across. So it's kind of interviewing authors, looking at the different books that are coming out at the moment, the different trends in the industry. It's just, I'm calling it an online digital platform. So there's even things like I imagine what a particular heroine in a book would wear, and I do base a fashion page on that. So it's just kind of interpreting the romance genre in different ways.
And it really is, because you go so much, I guess I'll say, further than a book review blog or like what we do on the podcast, because you do have, as you mentioned, the fashion thing, or I believe in June it was the book crush with Jamie Fraser, which...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody can have that crush, right?
I know, right?
and there are elements of reviews that work their way in, but then you do some dives on the industry too, or talking about tropes and such.
Yeah. I think that's probably my background in journalism as well. I used to work on magazines in Sydney. I worked on a travel magazine and on a hair magazine, of all things. And then I started my own magazine, a women's lifestyle magazine, which was print, which is obviously, that was more than 10 years ago now. So the industry has evolved so much since then, and it's so much easier to do a digital magazine than it is to do a print magazine. So I just thought I'd give it a go.
How do you decide what goes into each issue? Because there's so many things to pick from.
I know, there's so many things to pick from, and it's actually been it's getting easier every month because the magazine's getting more widely known, and people are actually messaging me, emailing me, they're giving me content ideas, which is fantastic, but it's just whatever I like. I don't know. I just, whatever I've been reading or what I've seen, or I am quite big on Instagram. I get a lot of inspiration there.
Yeah, I enjoy watching your Instagram just because it's so creative a lot of the time.
Well, I'm a graphic designer as well. So I see lots of cheeky quotes and things like that, and I just redesign them for my own purposes, which is so fun.
Your July issue will have only been out a short time by the time this episode airs. What can readers find in July?
So I'm super excited. In July, I have 3 authors that I definitely fangirl over. So I've got Eve Dangerfield. I've got an interview with her. I have an interview with Sarah McLean and an interview with Abby Glines.
Wow, 3 of them all in the same issue.
Yeah, well, in my very first issue, I had Beverly Jenkins and Kylie Scott, and I thought, right, I'm happy to finish this right now. I've reached my peak. Like, that was epic for me. I couldn't believe. I think romance authors are so generous with their time and their knowledge, and they just, it's just such a beautiful industry to be in.
Yeah, it really is, because everybody, there's so many warm people who are just happy to tell their story and tell everybody about their books.
Yeah.
What are the regular sections that readers look for each month?
So I generally start with a must-haves, which is just kind of products, bookish things that basically that I would like to be spending my money on. I think in one issue I had a pair of cashmere socks that were like $110, and I had a girlfriend calling me. She said, "You didn't buy those, did you?" I said, "No, I didn't. I'd like to." So yeah, we do must-haves. We do an IG profile, so I pick an Instagram account that's really inspiring me. I've got gorgeous images and profile them. We've got our author interviews. I generally have a couple of features. So, for example, in the current issue, we did one on the rise of rural romance. They call it Ruro. So it's basically Australian authors writing romance set in rural settings on farms, which is really lovely. I live in a small country town myself, so I can really identify with that. We do the fashion pages. We do a book crush every issue. So that's just a hero that we've got a bit of a crush on at the time. And it's really fun to contact the author and find out what they had in mind when they were writing that character. And so I get them to share their Pinterest pages with inspiration that they drew when writing, which I love. And we do... Oh, there's a bookshelf at the back which features a lot of books, and it's a really great showcase for indie authors, I think. So yeah, that's kind of it.
Well, and you said that's kind of it, but that's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into these issues. What is it? What kind of like overall timing and process that goes into creating a single issue?
Well, having done in my previous life the print lifestyle magazine, that was it was a whole circus. So I had staff and we had an office, and because I was spending $40,000 an issue just to print it, so it was big, right? So this is because it's digital, it's online. My overheads are tiny. It's literally me sitting at my kitchen table, and I don't have it here, but I literally designed up on an A3 bit of paper 4 weeks and split it into the days and split the jobs across it, and I laminated it so that I can write over the top of it every issue. And it's actually not too involved. I think because I know what I'm doing, and I love what I'm doing. And I think as a working mother, I just have to get shit done. Like right. I just, like I've got, windows in between kids being at school or ballet lessons or, all of that kind of jazz. And so, yeah, I just have to really, really productive with my time and bang it out.
And I think the online magazine, in a lot of ways, gives you a much broader design to work with than if you were locked into any kind of website format.
Yeah, I think it's fun because you can flip through the pages. It feels interactive, and you can, I can put GIFs onto the pages. So there's movement, there's different animations that you can use. And it's just, readers like the tactile experience of a physical magazine. And because I can't do that, I think a digital magazine, it is still something different from a blog post. And not to say that, there's some fantastic blogs out there, but it's just a different format.
Yeah, it's a different medium. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see if other people kind of move in that direction. As I think we're also used to seeing blogs, that this is another similar but different way to go.
Yeah, it's just a bit fun, a little bit different.
Now, July is also kind of a milestone for you because it's 6 months old for the magazine. It's issue number 6.
6 months.
What's been your favorite thing to write about so far in those 6 months?
I think the interview with Beverly Jenkins, that was kind of amazing. She is just, she's an icon in the industry, and she's so generous, and I couldn't believe that she was giving me the time of the day, especially because I hadn't published a magazine by that stage. I literally had nothing to show her. So she just kind of said, yeah, sure. So that was really incredible. And I do freelance digital marketing, which I've just stopped, and I'm focusing all my energy on blush because I really want to give it a go. I felt like I was building other people's dreams, helping them build their dreams, and I wasn't really putting any time into my own. So yeah, I'm kind of all in with this. I got skin in the game now.
That's awesome. That's a good
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, it really is. And I do need to say my husband is super supportive. And I'm very lucky. But yeah, like this is my gig now.
What surprised you over the 6 months?
Uh, I don't know if it was surprise. It was probably just reinforced how wide and how deep this romance genre is, and how amazing it is. I mean, if Alexa Riley can beat Michelle Obama in the rankings on Amazon, like that's huge.
And you're right too about the romance genre being so big. And I have found so far that you try to cover seemingly all of it. You've got all kinds of romance, including LGBTQ romance.
Well, that's a big sector, and it's valid, and it's I know that especially in the States, you've been having a lot of diversity talk at the moment, and so you should. Like, I just Blush is a vehicle for the romance industry, and I want it to encompass all aspects of that.
And we talked a little bit about before we started recording that it was Blush that first put red, white, and royal blue even on our radar as being, the thing we needed to watch out for in the spring.
Well, I'm sure if you hadn't seen it with me, you would have seen it very soon, because it has been so well received, and validly so. Like, she's amazing. She's going places.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. What got you into romance?
My parents owned a newsagent when I was younger, and romance novels were distributed by magazine companies, which meant that if they didn't sell, it was cheaper to rip the cover off and throw it out than it was to send it back to the company. So I used to scavenge through the back bin, and I fell into it. I read to my heart's content. The only problem was that because it didn't have a cover, and so, I mean, I knew the title, but without the image on the cover and the title, I can't remember any of them. And probably I was reading so many of them, I was just kind of consuming them. But yeah, so that's how I got into it, scavenging through a bin.
That is awesome. What a great way to get books as a kid.
I know, right? I mean, it's so demoralizing and awful for an author to think about. That's how some of your books may end up. Like, I don't know if that's still the practice. I would hope not. But that's back when I was 12, 13. That's how we did it.
But yet, on the other hand, I mean, how terrific that it must be. Yes, they didn't get paid for it, but they inspired somebody to go on and create something like this later in life.
Well, that's true. That's a really nice way of looking at it. Oh, thank you.
You can't remember some of the titles and authors, obviously, but do you remember like what tropes and what sort of elements of the story like fueled your interest in the genre?
I read a lot of the historical, which I loved. But I think I stopped reading for a while, going through, high school and then university, and got back into it with Kylie Scott, who's an Australian author who wrote a romance in a zombie apocalypse, which is very far removed from historical romance, but freaking awesome. She wrote 2 books and a novella, and then found mainstream success with her rockstar romances. But she kind of got me back into reading romance. Her and Amy Andrews, who is another Australian author, she's got a Sydney Smokes rugby series, which is a series of books set around a rugby team in Sydney. And she's just she has dialogue down pat. Like, she is so dynamic with her writing that she's really, really incredible. So I think those two got the ball rolling to get me back into it. And now I don't really have a favorite trope, a favorite genre. Like, I will literally read anything. You put it in front of me, I will read it.
That's awesome. I'm kind of the same way. Will has his kind of set thing where he likes contemporary, low angst, may take a few diversions off that path. But if I like the blurb, I'm at least game to see where it goes.
Where it goes. Exactly. Yep. I'm with you.
Now, since we are an LGBTQ romance podcast, what are some
Yep.
of your recents kind of in that genre?
So, what I've really loved is that some of my favorite authors are diversifying, I guess. They're going into that queer space. So, Kate Canterbury, she wrote the Walsh series, which I devoured, I loved. And then, as an offshoot, there's a lobster fisherman who marries. Erin and Nick in book 6, and so the lobster fisherman, he gets his own book, and he falls in love with a tech tycoon. And honestly, it was one of the hottest romances I've ever read. Like, she nailed it, and that was her first male book, and I just went, oh wow, you've done such a good job. Also, Tessa Bailey, she wrote a male. What's it called? I did write it down. It's not Mouth to Mouth. It's the second one. Heatstroke. She wrote Heatstroke, which is just really sweet, and the relationship between the two men, it was so believable, and so she's really good at characterization. She's fantastic. But my absolute favorite at the moment is Sierra Simone, who wrote the Camelot series. So it starts with American Queen, goes to American Prince, and I actually haven't read the third one because I got a spoiler, and I don't have the emotional fortitude at the moment to read it.
I understand how that goes.
But she just writes. So it's male, female, male. But the two guys, they've been in love for so long before Greer, the woman, actually comes into it, and just the depth of their love for each other. And it's kind of filthy, her writing, but awesome. And just, it's emotional, and it's just, she's fantastic.
Since you look at romance really from around the world for Blush, but you've seen, because you're in Australia and have read so many Australian authors, do you see kind of a difference of what romance is around the world and what gets written into the books from the native authors?
I think that a lot of Australian authors are actually setting their books in the US. I don't know if that's a marketing thing or if that's just what they read and that's what they want to write. But so there's that. But then there's a whole crop of Australian authors who are writing rural romance, which is set on an Australian farm as opposed to an American ranch. So there are differences in words, I guess. I don't know. Apart from that, though, I kind of think everyone's just writing their own happily ever after, and it's and in different ways, using different tropes, different locations. So I do wish that there were more Indigenous Australians writing romance novels. I think that would be amazing. There are some amazing Indigenous authors, just not so many writing romance. So that would be really incredible to see. I actually am writing as well. I'm sure everyone who reads is trying to write as well. So I've just published my second book, but I would like to co-author a book with, so I grew up in a small country town with a high Indigenous Aboriginal population. So I went to school with all of these Aboriginal girls, and I need to make contact with them and see if one of them will sit down with me and co-write a book, a romance from their point of view. I think that would be amazing, because I think I don't think that I would have the guts, I guess, to write from that point of view. Even if I had a sensitivity reader come in and read it afterwards, I really do think that their issues and their worldviews and there are differences, and you've got to do justice to that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you write? Tell us a little bit about Jacqui Greig books.
Well, they're my full name is Jacqueline, and my middle name is Haley. So they're written under Jacqueline. And the second, which literally I published yesterday, it's Getting Under Her Skin, and it's set in Sydney. So they're contemporary romances that are a little bit sexy. I don't think I really want my mum reading them, but yeah.
That's awesome. Any chance of a male in your future?
Yeah, I think so. But I think that again, um, I would want to team up with a gay male to help me do that. Like I don't want to presume that I would know their life experiences. So I think that would be super fun.
I hope you get to do that. We'd have to have you back on the show to talk about that when it comes out.
Absolutely.
What can you tease us about upcoming issues for the rest of this year?
Oh, the rest of this year. So I'm actually heading to the Australian Romance Writers Association. Their annual conference is in Melbourne. And I have lined up some authors that I'm going to do video interviews with as bonus content for my readers. So we're just finalising the details of that. But I do think that video which can be embedded into the magazine. So in the magazine, we also do really fun YouTube clips and things as well, it's the digital magazine format allows for that, which I think is really fun. Mm-hmm. So I think that video will start to become a little bit more of a thing with the magazine, as much as I don't really want to see myself on video. I think that it would be really fun to authors who are normally, behind the pen, behind the computer, and you don't see their faces or hear them. I think that would be a really fun thing to do.
I'm very much looking forward to that because I do, as you mentioned, it's great seeing how the video gets in there too to really make this interactive magazine. What's the best way for people to keep up with Blush online, and how do they get the subscription? Tell us all about that.
So at the moment, to be able to read the magazine, you have to head to the website, which is blushmagazine.com.au, and sign up with your email address. So it's free, and then the magazine gets emailed to you. Well, a link to the magazine gets sent to you so that you can view the magazine. And then previous issues, they are available on the website, so you can click through there. But probably I'm most prolific on Instagram. That's kind of where that's my jam. That's what I like doing. So, for cheeky quotes and books that are coming up, or, the behind the scenes of what I'm doing here, that's Instagram's where it's at.
Very cool. And can readers of the magazine get in touch and suggest ideas?
Absolutely. I love it. The interaction is one of the best things that I love about what I'm doing. So I get DMs on Facebook and Instagram, and my email is hello.blushmagazine@gmail.com.
And what would you say to anybody who is like, gosh, I really like that. Maybe I should start my own?
Yeah. So I guess have a look at the different platforms that are out there to do a magazine on. I use ReadyMag, which I really love, but there's also Issue, which is ISSU, which I'm kind of looking at as I get bigger. That might be where I go, just because you can get more stats on what particular pages people are staying on longer, that kind of thing. So I guess just have a really clear view of what you want to put in your magazine. You've got to, and structure it like a real magazine. So go and get a physical magazine, and you need a contents page, and an editor's letter, and kind of build it from there. But just know that readers like continuity. So if you're going to start a section, you've got to kind of continue it. So have a really clear idea of what kind of content you want to do. I haven't done this, and I probably should have, is build up content so that you're an issue ahead of yourself. So that, for timing, I guess that would make life easier. I like making things hard for myself. But and give it a go. Like, why not? It's so, compared to the money that I used to put into print publishing, digital publishing, there's barely any cost. So yeah, give it a go.
Cool. Hopefully somebody will also take up the inspiration, because At least the way we feel in podcasts, the more podcasts, the better. The more magazines, the
Absolutely.
better. The more blogs, the better. Let's all talk
Yep,
about
let's
it.
build this industry.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Jacqui, thank you so much for telling us about Blush. We're going to link up to everything we talked about, the authors and the magazine in the show notes. And we look forward to see what comes out in future issues.
Thank you so much for having me. It was just the highlight of my week. Thank you so much.